I have to ask him because I want to make sure I am dating the right guy. I have never dated anyone before, so I want to make sure that I am dating the right guy because I have social anxiety, and the word anxiety falls into that because I am anxious about people lying to me. What I'm trying to say is that after not realizing how I was treated at the orphanage in the Bronx until I was older, I want to know the full situation as soon as possible. I could just ask Marcus about it now, but I'm not going to because I want to do it in New York City where Marcus and I can have privacy 800 miles away. Moving along with my social anxiety, I want to talk about mine. It is a little bit difficult for me to talk to people. The reason why I began talking to Marcus is that I am wired to talk to people at work no matter what, because it is part of my job. If I am told to do something by force, I will do it. The reason why I kept on talking to Marcus when I saw him crying at the board next to the costume shop I work at in Chinatown is because it is in my good nature to talk to people who were upset like him, and then there was the fact I was just talking to him as I was making him a new cane and cloak at the costume shop next door. He was extremely lucky to walk into the costume shop while I was as I was working there. Moving along, I'm not going to talk about another aspect of the whole mental situation, which is actually upsets me badly, and that is the fact the Robins have autism when I don't. That sounds like something weird to be upset about, but it upsets me because that is part of the reason why that is part of them, and that will always be disconnected from me because I don't have autism. I know that autism is part of what makes Marcus's parents difficult sometimes. It makes George sensitive, Sam misbehave, and is what gives Marcus his social issues, and is what made him Dr. Marcacius, which all are not some of the best things in the world, but I wish I had autism just because I could try and envision myself in other people's shoes, and I wish I could connect with to them better with them having autism. As a psychology major in college originally, here's an example of something I'm trying to understand. Marcus has told me multiple times that his mother always wears a skirt and never pants, not for religious reasons, but just because she loves being beautiful for his dad, and that she just feels beautiful that way. That's plain weird. I mean, I don't think that his mother dresses like a slut or anything, but that's just plain weird. I'm not attracted to his mother or anything, but I think she looks beautiful enough as she already is, and for a 46-year-old, she looks great. I feel like his mother has no wrinkles at all, and that she looks younger for her age, especially when you consider the fact she is having mobility issues. Moving back to the autism part, another part of why I feel sad that I don't have autism to be like them is that no matter what, I know that getting through life is going to be better for me, and that it will be for Marcus, because I have less serious mental issues than Marcus does, because I just have one symptom, and Marcus and his family, I know, have many. I must admit that the fact his dad and mom fell in love partially because they both have autism, I find to be a good thing, because that way autistic people are busy taking care of each other, and as a psychology major in college, I know that no one knows the persona with the mental disorder better than other people with the same mental disorder. One thing I must admit is a flaw is that I have my parents is the fact neither of them has social anxiety. The reason why I find that interesting is because I'm sure it was difficult for them to come out of the closet, which gave them social anxiety to do that, so I'm shocked that being the outcasts of society for being gay, that didn't give them the social anxiety because of how bad American society has treated gay people. Moving along, I know it feels crazy, so some of the things I think, but that is who I am. There are plenty of other crazy things like I said up until now. I've never been religious, but I've always believed in God. I personally believe that gay people are on this planet because God wanted to put a group of people on this planet for me to feel sorry for, because I have mental issues, and gay people don't have mental issues unless a doctor or someone diagnosed them. I still am going to believe that as an awareist, I have told my parents about that, and they respect my theory, but they can't enforce it because they're gay. But they have a contributing factor for my point due to some of the hardships they have encountered when they were younger for being gay. Something very sad I must admit about my parents for being gay is that I was born in 1992. I was adopted in 1996. My parents didn't get married until same-sex marriage became legal in Illinois, which wasn't until 2014. I was 22 when they got married, and I was living with them for 18 years. However, I have never seen my parents unhappy together. They have always been happy together. My parents' wedding was very private. It was just a quick trip to the Cook County Courthouse. I was there and I watched my parents sign some papers, and they were married. After that, we went to Navy Pier for fun on that summer's night in Chicago. We had fun on the Ferris wheel and the glider and had dinner in the garden on Navy Pier. I know that all I just said was irrelevant, but I just like talking about it. Especially the funniest part, which is both of my parents dressed as grooms for the whole night and acted like little children on the rides on Navy Pier. Well, I smiled the whole time, which really isn't funny, but overall, behind the night I met Marcus, it was the best day of my life because my dads were happy. So to make a long story short, I love my dads possibly more than Marcus loves his parents. Marcus has been very nice to my parents, and I am very glad they have been so nice to him. They were so nice to give him and the rest of his family dinner the day George had to spend in the hospital the night in the hospital because he got hurt at recess. My parents founded Ouroboros Spray-Out College, and that has been their reliable source of income ever since. The year when I turned 16, they wanted me to work for them, and I asked for how much, and they said nothing because I was your daughter, and now my salary was they were paying for my college and for my law school, so I worked for them when I turned 16 until I began college, and then I had a lot less time because I lived in Chicago, in the north part of the Chicago city proper, and the University of Chicago was in the south part of the Chicago city proper. I still worked at the bar when I was in college if I had nothing to do, but I still worked there a lot less, to be honest, and I do more work there now than what I used to. When I was in college at the University of Chicago, I was a psychology major with the mindset of me being a lawyer eventually, because I wanted to be a lawyer who understands people, and that's why I chose to major in psychology, and to be a prosecuting lawyer because I wanted to understand people, and because of something I do not feel comfortable saying out loud quite yet, but I'm going to when Marcus and I visit the orphanage I used to live in the Bronx, New York City. I think I'm going to make the orphanage be the tell-all point when we are in New York City because I think it is just the most appropriate place to do so. It may make me sadly sadder, but I think it is the right place to do it. As I've said before, I've never been back to New York City ever since I was adopted. Mostly because my parents never went back to New York City because I think they didn't like what they saw, and my parents already had a life working for them in Chicago, with the border being operational. I didn't really do much domestic travel other than going to Michigan to see my uncle and sometimes going into Wisconsin to visit the house on the rock. However, I once did a road trip of my dad's down to New Orleans where we drove all of I-55 south down there, going through St. Louis, Memphis, Jackson, and on the way up we took all of I-65, stopping in Birmingham, Nashville, Louisville, and Indianapolis, which is the same ending route that Sam told me was what he and the rest of his family were taking home from Orlando. I wish I went to Orlando. That's one more American city I want to hit that I have not hit yet. I want to go to Disney World eventually, because who doesn't love Disney? Plus, there is also Universal Studios and SeaWorld. I asked Queen Valerie if I could come too, but she said no because Orlando was solely meant to be family time, and family time is not meant to be spent doing honky tonk, so she said I couldn't go despite it really not being in the end being family time. It was more about his grandfather getting his way and upsetting Marcus's parents, thereby cutting the trip short. Unfortunately, my grandparents were that way because neither of them liked the fact my other dad was not a woman. My uncles have been very accepting of it, and they were both a lot more religious than my parents are, and I was because I'm about to be very religious. I do wonder when my uncle, who teaches at Eastern Michigan University and lives in Ypsilanti, Michigan, where Eastern Michigan University is, will think about the religion I'm about to become a part of. I haven't told my uncles about this yet, mostly because we were still not super close with them because one lives in Spain and the other lives 240 miles from us in Chicago, but I am always happy to see them and my cousins and my aunts when I do. However, just because I haven't talked it over with them yet doesn't mean my parents have not, because my dad Peter speaks with my uncle Joe, who lives in Spain, about once a month for an hour because of how expensive international phone calls are, and my other dad David speaks with my uncle Edward, who lives in Ypsilanti, about once a week for just a matter of minutes. I unfortunately am not really able to get around to talking to either of them, just because I forget a lot that my parents never really forced it upon me to do so, except on their birthdays. And when I call my Uncle Joe, who lives in Spain, I have to do it at an appropriate time because Madrid is 6 hours ahead of Chicago. Once I called them at 6 in the evening Chicago time and ended up waking my Uncle Joe and his family up because it was midnight in Madrid and they were sleeping. When we go to New York City in a month and a half, New York City is just 1 hour ahead of Chicago, and not 6, so personally I'm not going to worry about the jet lag because it is only 1 hour.